from one computer waiting for another to update. And the computer that I'm waiting to update is running Windows 10 and should be getting the latest version of the Windows Insiders software. So we will wait for that. And while I'm waiting, I'm going to go ahead and see if we can pick a more appropriate, because it is springtime, design idea from, there we go, from PowerPoint to include in my background here. I'm using OBS for a composite background, so let's switch over to the other PowerPoint that I just opened. Presentation 2, there we go. And a little more appropriate given the springtime here, we can play this background and set it up for Tech Thursday. So thanks for joining me for Tech Thursday. Today, I am coming to you from a Mac computer while I wait for my Windows 10 computer to update. And one thing that I haven't tried on this computer that I have some interest in trying is to see if my Microsoft video adapter, which is USB-C, will work on this device. So let's plug that in while we're live and see what happens here with this dongle or accessory. I've used a different adapter on this computer, but this one from Microsoft supports network, HDMI, USB, as well as a VGA port. So I have all of those potentially if I can get this working. So we'll see if that device comes up and registers on my Mac computer here. I'm looking to see if the network preferences show a wired connection, and it appears that it does. So at least the wired connection is working. Let's see if I have a USB standard adapter here that I can plug in to see if that's working. And the device I'll use to test that is my Logitech Spotlight. The Spotlight has on the bottom a USB standard connection. And so if I plug this into my dongle here, it looks like I'm getting the setup for that. And it shows up as a keyboard, which is interesting. So I don't think I need to set it up as a keyboard, but the software that Logitech provides is probably something that needs installed. The other thing I can do, yep, it's working, is I can hold down the Spotlight button and I can actually move my mouse around using that. So I could navigate to another dialog box or to somewhere else on my screen using my Spotlight. So at least 2 of the ports on my Microsoft dongle are working on my Mac, which is great because I didn't have, I think it was video that I was testing on my other dock, and I was having an issue with the video out. The network, the wired network on this worked fine, but we'll test those 2 devices here momentarily, and my Windows device is at about an 85% update on the Windows Insiders software that I installed. The other thing that we can talk about, looks like I got a couple comments from, where are these platforms from? Let's see where they're coming in from. Doesn't tell me where they're coming in from in my view here. So I can showcase them on the stream, it looks like. Or I can keep them hidden from the stream, which is good because 2 look like they're just spam right now. I can also do a chat overlay in Restream. I just updated my Restream purchase to the Pro level, and this is allowing me to go live on both my YouTube channels as opposed to one and avoiding the other. As you know, Tech Thursday is aka.ms/Tech Thursday. And then I also have aka.ms/Tip Tuesday. And I am going to be continuing to go live on both of those platforms going forward. Restream will allow me, if I have a conflict at 1 p.m. Central, to go ahead and schedule those updates so that they're still appearing live, even if I'm busy on one of those days. I know I've got a few dates already set aside for training, and that training will keep me from going live at 1 p.m. Central. This scheduled update would allow that to still appear as a live broadcast, even if I'm busy during that time. So we are on Facebook, both of my YouTube channels, Twitter, as well as we're not on LinkedIn because I don't have the LinkedIn beta for going and live streaming yet. So let's take a look at that while we're waiting for my Windows device, which is 90% done at this point, to finish updating. If I look at OBS and see if I can share my other browser window here, and bear with me, if I get better at this, I could actually just share these different windows in different streams. Where's Safari? There we go. Okay, so my Safari start page is shared now. And if I do a search in Safari for LinkedIn live streaming, one of the first things that comes up is LinkedIn Live and the overview. And what you can do if you have interest in streaming live from LinkedIn is apply for access to live streaming on LinkedIn. And this can be through different streaming tools, Restream being one of them. And through the application, you apply for confirming that you have 2-factor authentication on your account, that you have an audience size and engagement history, and then you can apply for either your member account or a LinkedIn page. Since I have a LinkedIn page for DESA Enterprises, I may toss in another invite for that page to see if I can get access to DESA or to my individual account at LinkedIn. I haven't done a lot of audience building from my company page, so it might make more sense for them to allow me to get that access through my member page. Still sitting at 90% on my update. Oh, just made it to 92. So hopefully 93, the dialog box that's telling me how quickly this is updating is somewhat accurate. It's at 94%. And if I know these types of dialog boxes, there may be at least another restart or two in getting these updates installed on Windows 10. The reason I'm updating that device from the current version of the Windows Insiders to a very early ring is because Microsoft is adding multiple desktop support with individual wallpapers. And this is a feature that I really enjoy on the Mac side, Mac OS side, and it's coming to Windows 10. So I wanted to get into that early version so I can play around with that and take a look at that feature. What else today besides getting into the LinkedIn Live beta is going on from a hardware perspective? I've spoken about these a couple times, and I haven't paired either of them to my Mac computer. So let's go ahead and try that. These are Microsoft number pads. On the back, they've got power as well as 3 Bluetooth devices that they can pair with. So if I flip the power on my black one, hold down the button here for a couple seconds, and then I'll see if I can actually pair this to the Mac computer here. Bluetooth accessories. There we go. Microsoft number pad shows up, and then I type 177469 to connect it. Let's see if we get the accessory working here. Okay. There we go. Hopefully this is the last reboot that I need to do for my computer. It is. So we're in on Windows 10 now. Let's see if my number pad seems to be working fine. So these number pads are nice if you have a lot of heavy Excel use or any other need for a dedicated number pad on maybe a laptop device. Well, I'm streaming from my Mac. I'm going to go ahead and log in to my Windows 10 computer and take a look at if I can get into Restream from that device as well. So bear with me as we do this here. Let's see if we can do. Send out a couple messages on different platforms here. Make sure those are my 2 different channels. Those are actually showing up as the same channel. So I'll have to troubleshoot that later, I guess. Let's go in here, open up Restream, and see what happens when I get in from 2 different devices here. This is the first time I'll have been doing this from 2 different devices. So we'll look at setting this up. Turn off our video here. And see if I can go over to the secondary screen here. Enter Live Studio. Okay. There we go. I need to go into OBS here. So I'm sharing my OBS video stream. Let's see what's going out live right now. I'm not sure if it's picking up one or both of these. looks like it's still picking up my main device here. So let's switch over to this device. See if we can get our video working here. Oh, I've got to turn on the virtual camera. That's what I've got as a problem here. There we go. Okay. And if I go to scene 2 where I'm larger, there we go. Now we are sharing our computer screen. And if I hit the Windows key tab, you can see that I have multiple desktops available. I have desktop 2 with nothing on it. If I go to the personalization settings for that secondary screen and bring up the dialog box, let's change our background there. And let's see if the 2 backgrounds are now different. They are, look at that, awesome. So on my desktop 1 up here in the left-hand corner, I have the Windows logo, and on desktop 2, I have a different background, which would help me signify which virtual desktop I am using on each screen. And I believe I'm sharing my secondary screen, so we need to move that off here so you can see it, and then we'll go into task view so that you can see these on the live stream. So desktop 1, Windows background. Down here on the taskbar, task view. Desktop 2, different background. And then we'll go ahead with the task view and create a desktop 3, and then change that background as well. Browse. Let's see if I've got my absolute favorite. I do, and that is from the IT crowd. So now I've got 3 different desktop backgrounds, and I can play around with those different desktop backgrounds within the task view and have different things running on those. Because I have multiple monitors set up as well, each of these desktops has a different set of 2 monitors that I can have applications running on. So I need to go back to my first desktop to get to my Restream and my OBS windows that are open, and then I can move to other windows as well. So we've looked at today our Microsoft number pads, and these devices have a on-off switch on the back. So I can switch them on, and then they can be paired to up to 3 Bluetooth devices at once, which is a great feature that I like of those. And then we also looked at a couple of the USB-C accessories for connecting various devices to computers. And I'm playing around with the Microsoft branded dongle and additional port replicator on my Mac. And that is actually working for, right now, a USB accessory. What else for today? We've looked at signing up for LinkedIn live beta, and we're on Twitch, as well as Facebook, Twitter, and then my YouTube channel. Next week, we will look at, for Tech or Tip Tuesday, some tips from a standpoint of Twitter. And the reason for that is because I have met a couple of people that are Twitter experts, and they always have great Twitter tips for people that either use Twitter or even that just want to look for information on Twitter. One benefit to Twitter from LinkedIn, from my perspective, is you don't have to sign up yourself to actually see what somebody is posting to it. It's similar to YouTube. You can check out YouTube videos with or without a YouTube account. You don't have to kind of buy in as a subscriber or log in to use the service. Same thing with Twitter. You can actually go to twitter.com/Stilldre, and you can see all of the posts that I post without a Twitter account. You don't even have to authenticate or log in. LinkedIn is a little different. It's primarily getting an account and then either engaging with other people, connecting with other people, or following other people, which I do quite a bit of. But for some people, they don't have a LinkedIn account and they may not want a LinkedIn account. So Twitter is a great place for those folks to engage or learn, but not necessarily feel like they have to set up an account on the platform. And the thing that I've become very, very interested in on Twitter is what they call Twitter Spaces. So what Twitter Spaces allows you to do, I can see if I can show this to you real quickly from my iPhone, is I can set up a account, and then at the top in purple, I get access to the different spaces that are going on. And Samantha Kelly's Twitter space is still happening right now. So I can click on that to see a couple of the people that are in the room, and then I can actually enter the space by the application for Twitter. And the nice thing about this, Samantha Kelly, Chris Strub, and others, are they have lots and lots of Twitter tips to share with their audience. And you need an iPhone to join as a Twitter Space host, which is still in beta, similar to Clubhouse. But the nice thing about Twitter Spaces is, one, it uses Twitter, which I am a big fan of. And two, it is already cross-platform. You can join from Android or iOS. They have some features from an audio perspective that I haven't seen over on Clubhouse so far, but it's one of the places I'm spending more and more time, just because I already had kind of that audience and interest on Twitter as well. So today on Tech Thursday, we've looked at a couple different tech decisions, one being the fact that Windows now has multiple desktops that support different backgrounds. And the first place we will see that is within this build 21.33.7. 21,337 is the OS build that I'm on in a dev ring. So I had to update from yesterday's Windows Insiders build to a much earlier build ring to actually get this. And if I can find my mouse here, there we go. Let's see if I can get to my Action Center here. Covering up the exact area on my screen that I need to click on. There we go. To take a look at some other settings that I want to confirm here. Let's do this. Update, Windows Update settings. There we go. So within my update settings, you'll see here that I have Windows Insider program as a choice. And if I bring up OBS here, I'm going to have to switch my desktops, which is going to be a tricky feat here. I'll switch over here to my other desktop, make myself a little smaller, and then we'll switch back over to my other desktop where I've got the Windows Insiders program open. And this is where I've gone ahead and said that I want the early updates for Windows, and then the update, check updates, is where I got this most recent build that has that feature of multiple desktops with different backgrounds on them. And I saw that launched here fairly recently. So Tip Tuesday, we will look at Twitter Spaces as well as some Twitter tips and tricks. And then We will see you again on Tech Thursday next week. We will figure out what we're talking about from a hardware perspective. I do have my trusty ring light here as well. So I can mention this as part of my tech setup. And what my ring light allows me to do with its handy little remote here is turn on some light to get my background and my green screen to avoid being able to see the green screen behind me. So I need to figure out how to properly set that somewhere within my environment to get the light behind me so that you don't see kind of this green screen half in my settings. So between my ring light and maybe a halogen or another light, that's part of my tech setup that I've got for live streaming. And we'll talk about that as well on Tech Thursday next week. Thanks everybody for tuning in. If you have interest in live streaming, feel free to reach out on YouTube in the comments, on Facebook, Twitch, any of those platforms that we're live on. And Twitter will be our topic for Tip Tuesday this following Tuesday. Thursday is, I'll remind you, April Fool's Day. We'll cover that last item that we had from a session on Tuesday here with everybody. If you right click on your desktop computer display settings, there is a capability within your display settings on Windows to actually flip your computer screen upside down with landscape flipped. And I would advise you to be there when somebody that you've done this to finds that their entire desktop computer is upside down, or it can cause a lot of frustration and wouldn't be something I would want to be around after the person can't figure out how to flip their computer right side up if they don't know about that trick. The other thing that I have been using, and you can see in these broadcasts, is there is a mouse setting in Windows 10 which allows you to make a gigantic mouse. And somebody that I know personally asked me about, what do you mean a gigantic mouse? And what's the downside to that from an actual use? So here's a demo of that. The pointer size and color can be adjusted. So my pointer can be kind of the normal size that would be used, or I can make it really, really big. And what I mentioned to the person that was asking this was the downside to this is if I'm in an application like Word. So I'll bring up Microsoft Word here. Move that over to my secondary screen here so that you can see it. And we'll open a blank document. And if I put in some random text, you can do this with the equal sign, RAND, close, open and close parentheses. You'll notice that my mouse itself and even the selection, for me, when I'm looking at it, it looks like it's somewhat regular size within the video sharing, but this mouse pointer is actually highlighting the first two paragraphs for me right now. And the thing that I realized was that when you're using this, the mouse pointer, which is very, very big for me right now, it's covering the first two paragraphs on my screen, is that when it's a selection, it's in the middle. So I'm actually hovering right in the middle of the different paragraphs and texts to highlight them. And when it is a pointer, such as coming up to the menus, it's actually the tip of the pointer at the top that is where my mouse pointer actually is. So getting familiar with those different sizes is something that's really helpful from a standpoint of training to draw attention to your mouse. This inverted I like a lot because then I can actually see the text behind the very, very large mouse that I'm using. But I've also found that to be something that's more of a training use than a using your computer use, unless you have this inversion and you just lose your mouse a lot of times. On two screens, a lot of times I have a tendency to not be able to find the mouse. So this is helpful in those scenarios. So I hope you have a great rest of your Thursday. I will see you here at 1 p.m. Central on Tuesday, and we will cover Twitter, Twitter Spaces, and talk about some other tips on Tuesday. Have a great weekend, everyone. Bye-bye. I'm going to see, I think I can